Well, this is Henry Sanders back at you with another episode of Real Talk. I want to thank our sponsors, Park Brink. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We also have a podcast. Make sure you check out our podcast. We have a good friend of the show and someone I kind of miss talking to this guy. A lot has happened since we talked. When I say I kind of miss talking to him, not I'm he's blown up though since we last talked. I mean, like he's on CNN and all this for stuff. I mean, like he's becoming like a national figure, right? I mean, so he's kind of becoming the face of Wisconsin for us. Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes, how are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. I will not say I miss talking to you. I can say that. I will go ahead and just say it.
I like that. See, I like that. I like that. He's the new, like, I missed you, Henry. Like, I missed you. So, you know what? You're right. You're right. I should just man up and say, yeah, I mean, No, man, hey, I'm always proud of you and proud of thing you're doing. And I'm proud of, we're talking about diversity. I'm proud of your staff, man. Like, you have a very diverse staff over there, and that's the most diverse staff I've seen in that office. So, shout out to you. Is that intentional?
I hired the best people.
I think that's
what it comes down to.
And diverse, like really diverse. Like it's a diverse office, man.
We got some solid diversity in the office, but like that's my thing too. Is like a lot of people, want to get brownie points for their diversity efforts. Like, dude, just you give the right people a chance. It's like we shouldn't celebrate the fact that people have forever just denied people opportunities, based on anything that isn't professional qualification, right? Like that's just been the case. So all of a sudden we should give people extra credit for that stuff. I don't think so, man. So, I'm proud of the team we put together. But like, that's the last thing I want credit for because it's just what should be the case anyway. A lot of people get credit for just doing the bare minimum, man, just doing absolutely nothing. Folks show up to one protest and decide that they are all of a sudden just the arbiters of social justice, man. This is wild, man.
Whoa, so shots fired. You want all that smoke.
It's not shots fired. It's not shots fired.
Look. Now I have missed you. I have missed this conversation because this is a real talk, right? Like, so I have to watch because I sound like I'm old too, right? So I'm going to say, but I get what you're saying that people sometimes just show up and like they said, I showed up at one thing or I did one letter or I did something and now I'm all of a sudden know more than other people have done all this work. Man, that's a whole different conversation. God bless them. We need people doing the work at different levels. So I'm not trying to throw shade at them, but I hear.
Yeah, and I'm not either. It's like the fact is, it's like the thing. It's like you are absent for so long that you finally show up. Then all of a sudden you're expecting confetti. Like, come on, man.
Bro. I wish we had. Like, I don't believe in calling black folks out, right? So I hear you. So, man, you know what? The show, Real Talk, I kind of told you offline, we kind of changed the format a little bit, right? Because, last year we did 62 shows last year. And, I heard for a lot of people, they wanted to know more about people's stories. They wanted to know more about how people got where they are. And our team, we talked about it. And we were like, you know what? What's that like? That's 365 state of mind, what we talk about, where people like people of color are almost superheroes, like my team, like meaning superheroes and you have to jump over like a building. You have to have your spider sense. You have to know like microaggressions on. Like it just doesn't happen where you just become the lieutenant governor overnight, right? It just doesn't happen. And you have to have tenacity and perseverance and endurance. And there's a lot of people out there who just see you now and say, oh, he just must have ran for office and he's lieutenant governor. Like this happened. And you know, and I know that stuff doesn't happen, right? People are like, oh yeah, doing Master 65 and all this other stuff. I put in work and, talking about, I could give you stories about racism I've gone through and make you cry. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I think people need to know more of our stories, right? And so tell us a little bit about, like, you became lieutenant governor But tell us your story. You grew up in Milwaukee or
Of
suburbs?
course,
You were one
yeah.
of those suburbs. Well,
No,
you're
city of Milwaukee, man. What's wrong with you?
you kind of come with them
And
suburbs,
nothing wrong with the
dudes.
suburbs. It's nothing wrong with the
You
suburbs, but I'm
Delafield.
city.
You're in Delafield. You grew up in Delafield or
Wow.
something.
Wow. Wow. Nothing against Delafield, man.
No,
You
no,
grew up where
Sean.
you grew up. You a baby. Babies can't pick where they live, but I've always been city of Milwaukee. But my mother taught at MPS, so I mean, we were a Milwaukee family, Milwaukee household. My dad spent his whole life in the city of Milwaukee, and there was no reason for us to leave the city limits. Challenges and all, right?
So
and that's
what school did you go to in Milwaukee?
I went to Holy Redeemer, and I went to Marshall High School.
Okay. Oh, you went to Marshall. Okay.
I went to Marshall High School. Graduated from Marshall in 2003, and yeah, man, it's those challenging times is what prepared me to be in this position. Like you said, people sort of see you somewhere, and they don't know what they don't see.
Yeah.
So it's easy for people to make assumptions. Another thing too is like when you get to this sort of office, people attach you to this elite political class. And look, man, and there's nothing different here. And I still am subject to a lot of the same things anybody else would be, because if I'm out in the streets and something goes down, chances are they wouldn't see Mandela Barnes, lieutenant governor. They would see a young black man. Right. So the association, I didn't just pop up here, and I didn't get here by way of privileged circumstances. Right. Like my family is not rich. My family is not politically connected. My parents, members of their union or their respective unions, my dad, UAW, my mother, teachers union, but it's not like they were these union bosses that were pulling levers to get me elected, and my parents are very personable people. That's what people always say. A lot of people know my mom just through her many years of teaching, and she's just one of those. She's one of those personalities. I'll say that much. And my dad, having spent his whole life in Milwaukee, every time I run into people, I could be at the Y or something. Oh yeah, I went to high school with your daddy. All this, stuff like that, and that sort of rubbed off on me, and it was helpful, but when it comes to terms of power, this is basically starting from scratch how I got here, right? Like I started as a field organizer, and then a field organizer on a race is sort of what sparked my interest or made me feel like this is something that was possible. And then even after I was a field organizer, I did an unpaid internship. And I talk about that a whole lot because this was straight pursuit of happiness style. And I had a job already. But I needed to open some more doors, but I didn't yet have the experience or the connections to make that happen. So I took an unpaid internship, met as many people as I possibly could through the course of that, and was a receptionist in the mayor's office in Milwaukee. And
was this Mandela? Was this? So you graduated from college, right? And so you where'd you go to college?
Alabama A&M University.
Oh, okay. Okay, Alabama. All my family's down there in Alabama. All my cousins went to A&M, all of them. And so
good people.
Yeah, man. And so black college you went to at A&M. Mm-hmm. So walk me through that. So you're a kid who comes from Milwaukee, one of the highest segregated places in the country. You go down to Alabama, totally different culture. I mean, down south is a night and day from black culture. The black culture from the Midwest is totally different from black culture down south.
It is way different.
Night and day. And you can see that playing out politically. Like when Biden got to South Carolina, flipped, right? Because just different cultures. So walk me through that experience of going from a kid from Wisconsin going to Alabama and A&M. Like, what was that? Was that a shock, or how did you?
Definitely a shock, man. So my mother is originally from Birmingham, and she went to A&M. Basically, her whole side of the family went to A&M. A few people went to State, a few people went to Tuskegee, but for the most part, A&M was our family school. And got there, and the thing about it in our dorm, the four of us in our suite, none of us were from Alabama. So, me being from Milwaukee, one person was from Miami, one was from Buffalo, and another from Dayton, Ohio. So the four of us were in this totally different experience together. I mean, the closest person would have been the one in Miami, but Miami is a completely different world. And so being there, you just had to, things were just different. That's the easiest way to put it. And Milwaukee has its challenges, and I talk about this a lot. The whole aspect of the necessity of HBCUs, and we don't have HBCUs here in the Midwest. We got Wayne State and Detroit, but other than that, there aren't a whole bunch of HBCUs around here. I mean, Chicago State it's not an HBCU, but
what's the one in Ohio? Central
Central
State?
Yeah, Wilberforce Central State.
Wilberforce, yeah.
So you got a couple here and there, right? Nothing like in the South, where it's basically in every city. And so with that being said, college is just a part of the culture in the South for Black people. And that isn't necessarily the case in the Midwest. It's seen as sort of like a handful of people, relatively speaking, who end up going to college. And that's, it's unfortunate. The college isn't for everybody. I definitely understand that. There are many opportunities for people in the trades. Many people, have other things to explore. But I'll say, though, when college is a part of the culture, like all the kids growing up, they know somebody that went to one of these schools. Mm-hmm. It's just a part of life. It's a fact of life. And so the whole culture is different in that aspect because, Marshall was a school that had some challenges, man. Not a whole bunch of people from Marshall end up going to college. And so with that being said, showing up and being in like an atmosphere where people looked at education like a little bit differently than what I was used to. Like I had to grow up fast, and I started college when I was 16, so I had to grow up really fast.
Well, time out. Back up. Why did you go to college at 16? What was that? What? Like, how does that? You graduated at 16?
Yeah, I graduated at 16, started college at 16. So I had to grow up incredibly fast, and I had to learn quickly.
But why'd you graduate at 16? Like why did you do that? Like, you were just that smart that you had to.
Yeah, I didn't want to say it. I want to let you.
I'm asking.
It.
No, I'm asking.
I want to watch you say.
Right.
Smart. I just wanted you. Right. I want to see. I want to look here on the Zoom screen and watch you say.
We'll have to edit
Mandela
that out.
Barnes, you were that smart.
We have to edit that out. You're right.
That's what I want to. That's what I want to see. No, man. Yeah, I skipped 2 grades, so.
That's impressive.
2 grades.
That's impressive.
I appreciate it. Yeah, so it was an experience, but like right away, I want to be sure to be as like deeply woven into the fabric, into the culture as possible. So I joined, student government, joined our NAACP chapter, and I just wanted to get as involved as possible, to meet people, to learn more, to like have as well-rounded of a college experience as possible. And so I ran for freshman class president, got blown off the map. It was.
So I want to stop there though. I want to stop there, right? So I want to stop there for people. Listen, the first Black lieutenant governor in the state of Wisconsin, his first campaign he ran in college, he got I don't want to say destroyed, but I don't want.
Oh, I did. It was bad. It was real bad.
He got a beat down, something like so.
Yeah.
But now you're lieutenant governor of the state of Wisconsin, right? Like so.
Yeah.
There's something to be said.
And I ended up the guy that I lost to. We ended up becoming frat brothers.
So you're in a frat, so that's important too. What frat are you in?
Yeah, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Okay,
so you joined a frat in college?
I did my second year. And like I said, the person I lost to, we ended up becoming line brother. We're obviously still friends to this day. But yeah, it taught me a lesson too. He's from Birmingham, and like Birmingham is probably the largest voting block. Now, what I should have done is I should have tried to build an alliance with the students from Mobile, from Montgomery, and all the other out-of-state students. Yeah. and then we could have pulled it off. But I wasn't that strategic back then, and my speech was trash, and I was nervous. I didn't know anybody. All these faces, I felt like everybody was judging me, and then I like bombed at the podium. I bombed, but yeah, moving on.
Would you do it? But I mean, I don't want to rush past that because I think it's important for people to understand. Almost everyone I know who's successful has failed miserably at some point in time. Like,
oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
Right. Like,
I'm glad that I'm glad that happened because I obviously think about it. It was almost 20 years ago. I still think about it, that experience, and like I carry it with me. Like even on some of the biggest stage I've ever had a chance to speak on. Like sometimes it'll still haunt me when I get ready to approach the lectern, man. And I'm glad I get to carry that with me. And people are defined by some substantial failures, and I've had more than one. Like it's been a few huge failures that I could think of, and that's fine, right? Like I'm not gonna sit here and act like, I mean, I haven't had a perfect life to begin with. I'm not gonna sit here and act like every step along the way was flawless, because it wasn't. And if it was flawless, if I did have everything more easy along the way, I wouldn't be ready for this. I wouldn't be ready for what I'm doing. Like it's the fact of having to deal with, that sort of adversity or that sort of disappointment that kind of gets you ready for whatever's next. And you think about never wanting to go back to that place again, but you also are realistic that it can happen in an instant. So I think about a number of things. I remember in 2010, when I was working for the Milwaukee Area Workforce Investment Board, and I got laid off, and my job there was to help people find jobs, right? Like that was a thing along the way where it was a huge setback, man. My life changed really quickly. Even before that, like my hours got cut from 40 to 29. So that I was no longer eligible for, the benefits that come with full-time employment, because it was just under 30 hours. And that helps my perspective too when it comes to issues like food insecurity, when it comes to unemployment, when it comes to housing insecurity, because I didn't go up to my boss and say, hey, give me fewer hours, right? It just happened in an instant, and it was not my fault. And it wasn't easy to just go find something else that I could do part-time like that. And that is one reason why I advocate for so many of the issues that I do advocate, because not everybody in elected office, especially those in the highest decision-making offices, they haven't had that experience, right? They've had more pampered lives. They've had more privileged lives. And this sort of thing happening to any person is just unrealistic and could only possibly happen to someone who just didn't try hard enough.
Yeah. So I have a question for you, because listening to you, you graduated from high school at 16 in Milwaukee. That can't be easy, being a black man who was Milwaukee graduate at 16. That shows some perseverance, it shows some ambition. Then you get to A&M. You're outside the Midwest. You're down south, and you decide to run for president of student council, student government?
Was it? Freshman class president.
Freshman class president, which takes some audacity. And then you run for LG. I mean, so like you have did you know that you wanted to be a lead? Like what made you decide that you wanted to take those steps? Yeah. To become because you sound like, did you think about, I want to be a leader? Like I want to be like, how did you process do that?
Yeah, I'll say in high school, I was a member of this group called Top Teens of America.
Yeah.
It was, it's not exactly Jack and Jill.
My mom was part of that. Teresa Sanders, Top Teens.
She's a top lady?
And Madison, yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's what's up. I got so much love for Top Teens. I'm actually speaking at one of their things coming up later on this month. But yeah, Top Teens, I was a part of the organization. And that's probably what got me set, because I learned about being a part of an organization and being a part of a larger group committed to public service. But we also had to learn parliamentary skills. We had to learn how to run meetings. And my senior year in high school, I was the president of our Top Teens chapter. So that was really cool. And it gave me an opportunity to have a taste of leadership. and to also, it helped me with my social skills as well. And honestly, to think about where I was before top teams to being in top teams, I still need a whole lot of help when it came to social skills. But glad I did have that experience because it helped out. It helped out at least somewhat. And yeah, so when I got to college, I was like, yeah, I've been a president of a youth organization. Let's try this one out. Let's see what it would be like to run for freshman class president without knowing anything about the campus. It was super audacious. I mean, but it was freshman class president. It's not like I ran for the student body president.
Yeah, but it still takes, you have to have something in you to want to do what you did. Okay, so fast forward now. You decide to run for lieutenant governor. You have this. You've lost because you lost a race before this, right? Did you lose a race before? Right?
Yeah. When I was running that race, I was on your radio show, and you like just lighting me up. Why you want to run this race? Why you want to be a part of this one? What makes you want to do this? I'm like, man.
Well, I was this how bougie folks get, right? So was I don't remember that interview, but
I will never forget it.
But it sounds like me. So was I asking though because I always come from love, so I'm never trying to put someone down.
I wouldn't be on here. I wouldn't be on here with you right now if I thought it was any sort of like ill intent.
So I was asking like, can I ask anyone what's going to office? Like, why do you want to run for office? Why do you want to be in office? Like, that's a tough role, especially when to get things done. Someone who's ran for office, like I know the journey. Mm-hmm. I just been in politics. I'm like, it's just a tough gig. Why would you want to do it? Was I asking in that way, or was I saying like, who are you? Like, how was I?
I mean, so I was in office before, and I was giving up my office to run for another one. And you're like, why this race, brother? And I was like, I was explaining it to you. I think you sort of got it, afterwards, after the conversation. Regardless, I obviously understand the reservation, and I didn't take it in any offensive sort of way, because even if you were being offensive, you would have been on the light end of that one.
I wasn't, for real, like I want to try to be. I just want to be for the people listening. I wasn't being offended. Anytime, especially people of color, running in Wisconsin, I understand the Wisconsin machine, and because you were running against someone black at that point. Right?
Yes.
Okay, so no, all right. So I kind of remember now. So see, now it's coming back to me. Yeah, okay. Let's move past that. But I understand it was love.
I don't need to move past it. We're good, man. Like,
so like, okay. So you decide to run. You lose a race. You left. You're in the legislature, right? You're in the legislature. Mm-hmm. You decide to run for. I don't remember. It was county exec. I can't remember what was it. What you?
No, I was a state rep, ran for state senate.
Okay, you lose that race.
Yeah.
So. At that point, you could have reset. You could have said, I want to leave politics totally and just get away from this. And I'm just going to do, and like, someone like you can make a lot of money in the private sector with your skill sets, your connections. And you said, no, I'm going to go back and run for office. What was that process?
Yeah, I was definitely approached by a couple people after that. Like for positions that I didn't think that was my calling. I can think of a healthcare group in particular that reached out to me about a role in government affairs, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do. And I could have easily made way more money, could have almost like tripled my legislative salary. But it was like, that wasn't for me, And so I went to work for a policy group, promoting the same exact issues. Like we were wholly in line, right? Like it was a group that I worked with while I was in the legislature. And so the opportunity to work for that group was like a perfect fit, because I got to go across the country, work with other legislators in different states, help promote their issues, and sort of like not reset or even realign, but like to just like restructure my own value set, like to like sit here and say, yeah, this is exactly what I want to be doing, this type of work. And knowing that 2018 was, midterm year with Donald Trump as president, I knew that it could be a good year for Democrats. And so I decided to run for lieutenant governor because I knew that we had to, it wasn't just going to happen. We had to be intentional about the way that we engage communities all across Wisconsin. So decided to run for lieutenant governor, a position where people are like, why do you want to run for lieutenant governor? I'm like, trust me, like it's, it will make sense soon enough. I thought it was well thought out. It was actually one of my most well thought out things, right? Much more well thought out than running for state senate. But it was it was a chance for us to push a bold vision, man. And like my very first race in 2012, I wanted to push a bold vision, like the things that were going on in the community, things that were going on statewide. Like this was in the wake of Act 10. Now that we're in the 10th anniversary of Act 10, like I ran for state rep the following session, the very next election. And I knew that part of the reason we got there is because we didn't think bold enough and we didn't do enough to build power. And running for state rep, then running for state senate, it was still about that bold vision. And running for lieutenant governor, I want to make sure that we could talk about these things statewide, like the issues that people would have traditionally stayed away from. I wanted to make sure that we were talking about them, because the reason we weren't winning elections is because we were too afraid to talk about the real things happening all across Wisconsin in households in all 72 counties. And, back to my organizing days, like now that it was 2011, that was 2011, it's 10 years ago. I think about when we launched our 11 by 15 campaign, and it was to reduce Wisconsin's prison population by 11,000 inmates by 2015. Definitely fell a little bit short of that goal. But the fact is, one of our biggest drivers for that was that the fact that the state of Wisconsin spent more on incarcerations than the entire UW system. And so just last night, I'm very proud that I was a part of this budget that helped get us to the point where, for the first time in a generation, the governor's budget, the executive budget, invests more in the UW system than the Department of Corrections over the biennium. And that is the first time in a generation.
That's sad. That's sad.
And it is sad, but it's like it's an emotional journey too, because literally that's the thing I've been talking about since I ran for my very first office. And like these things take way too much time, in my opinion. But for us to like finally get to that place, it's incredible. I've been talking about the need for us to invest heavily in green jobs and job training programs and promote an opportunity for people. And I guess even maybe less time talking about that. That was more so an issue I took on as a legislator. But now we're at a point where we're making historic investments in renewable energy, historic investments in green job training programs, and providing opportunity to people, even opportunities for people who are re-entering society to participate in the green economy, man. It's something I'm incredibly proud of. Healthcare is an issue. Like, we were always adamant about the expansion of Badger Care, but now we've introduced a budget that includes a public option, man, and that will provide healthcare options for so many people. It will create competition in the marketplace. A lot of my friends on the other side of the aisle, they talk about competition, but we absolutely need competition and options when it comes to health insurance, because the fewer providers we have, the more people are able to charge, the more people are able to sort of get over on everyday folks who need health insurance. And in the middle of a pandemic, healthcare should be front and center. It has to be the thing that we're talking about, because too many people lost their jobs, and as a result of losing their jobs, lost their health insurance. People are getting surprise medical bills. People are having to pay for COBRA, which is out of control, man. COBRA is like, you charge. Think about it from the perspective of, if you have a full-time job, your job offers health insurance. Sometimes you get it for free. Sometimes you pay at a discounted rate for the group health insurance. Then you lose the job and you have to pay more for health insurance when you don't have a job. Like, it's so backwards, man. All this stuff is messed up. These systems are broken, but we are trying to do everything we can do to fix them. And an option like a public option for Badger Care will go a long way to help those people fill the gap. Now, universal health care is the goal. That's what we need as a country. It's a federal issue, but at least there is something we can do to fill the void in the meantime.
So I appreciate that. And I want to, you said so much in there, and I'm listening to you and the passion and the vigor that you're talking about all this stuff. As a black man, this is like kind of switching a little bit here on you, but as a black man, the highest ranking black man in the state of Wisconsin, first black lieutenant governor, a young guy. How old are you? How old are you?
I'm 34.
Okay, wow. 34. Mm-hmm. A young guy at 34. So how do you as a black man, how at this point being a leader so young, how do you decide who comes in your circle? Because I'm listening to your passion, right? So you have such passion. I could say you could intimidate a lot of people, right? Because you're clearly you're extremely knowledgeable. You achieved a lot. 34. I mean, the future for you was extremely bright. How do you decipher like who comes in your circle, who you talk to? And I'm not even talking about relationships, like with I'm not talking about. But that's that'd be a good question for you too. But how do you decide who comes in your circle? Because how do you trust and how do you decide? What is that process?
Incredible question, man. And like, it's my day ones, right? The people who've been there before, or the people who may not have been there since day one, but the people who are around at my worst. Like, so the people who were on board with me in 2016, when I made that race, or when I made that run for state senate, and like stuck around after I lost, you know who your people are when something like that happens. Because there were a whole bunch of people who just stopped returning my calls after that. There were a whole bunch of people who just weren't showing up after that. And then there were the people who, even after that loss, when I decided to run for lieutenant governor, which seemed like such a wild idea for a person just coming off of a loss, like, people showed up when I was, when I was at my dip. If you follow stocks, people got in at the dip. And so for those people who showed up when I literally had nothing to offer them, that's how you know who your people are.
And I just being a young black man who's clearly achieved and talented, I get this all the time. People, especially women, ask me about it all the time. So I don't know your preference, but I do. I have to ask the question, right? Like, you're 34. Do you want to get in a relationship? Do you want to get married? Like, is that part of the like it's? And I'm asking this from a leader who's like the highest ranking. Yeah. You're in the history books. Like, do you decide? How do you decide you're gonna be in a relationship or not? Like, is that in the universe?
And so, like, the thing about getting into politics young, it makes it a little bit tough. It makes it incredibly difficult. Definitely, I definitely want children, man. Want children, want to be married at some point. But like, my question is like, when? And then I just feel myself just inching closer and closer to 40, right? Like, if back in the day, I was like, I'll probably be married by 25, but I was running for office at 25. It definitely wouldn't have had time to even pay necessary attention to starting a family, not the kind of attention that a family deserves. And we're about to go into an election year. And it's like, all right, well, now how am I going to, even think about starting a family, at this point, going into an election year. So one day is my answer. It's the things we all long for, right? Want to take some family trips, create a legacy,
Yeah. It has to be. So is it lonely? I mean, do you feel lonely being like again, I'm going to keep saying this, the first black lieutenant governor of the state of Wisconsin. Do you feel lonely? I mean, like, do you get lonely in that role?
Lonely isn't the word that I use. Lonely is not the word that I would use.
Okay. So last question here, and I'll let you go. And I appreciate your time, man. I learned a lot more about you today. Was always impressed by you. I'm actually more impressed by, I didn't know you were a young prodigy either. I didn't know that, man. 16 and 34. I mean, wow, that's that's extremely impressive. So, okay, I'm gonna ask all my guests this question: if you could be a superhero, you could have any power, Mandela. What power would you have?
I always said my power would be invisibility. And
Why?
well, for a number of reasons, I think it's, I think it just allows for so much. And I sort of got a taste for it this summer, like as things went on lock. And usually, you go places, but I was, if you got a mask and sunglasses on, I'm rendered invisible. So I think about how, invisibility might be, will probably be the superpower of choice.
And that makes sense for you because with your future, you're not gonna be able to go to many places where people are not gonna notice you. So, so anyway,
it is fine.
And you know what? Look, we appreciate you, man, and we appreciate everything you're doing. I appreciate the journey, and we just keep doing everything you're doing, fighting for our state. And I'm excited to see what you do with your future. I just at 34, and the state like Wisconsin was a key player in everything politically nationally. With your connections, it'll be interesting what you do in the future, man. So
I appreciate it, man. And you said the word prodigy, and it made me think about this podcast I was listening to called The Realness. It was about Prodigy from Mobb Deep. It was about his life.
Yeah.
It was about his rap career, then like him dealing with sickle cell, then his incarceration, and then it ultimately just talked about like the disparities in healthcare, especially when it comes to sickle cell, like something that primarily affects Black people, and like the disproportionate amount of funding that sickle cell research gets is out of control. It's absurd, and people are still struggling. Not as much as they were, because people are getting their tests for it to see if they carry the trait or not. So some of that is avoided, but it was a really good podcast. It talked about a whole bunch of issues, man. The realness.
Well, what's interesting about you is that I said Prodigy. One, I love how you went to hip hop and Mobb Deep. I love how you did that, right? As lieutenant governor, I love that, right? Like, yes, he knows Mobb Deep. But then you went back to fighting for people, sickle cell, and like you went back to like, how can you advocate and fighting for people? So it's fascinating. This whole like conversation, you always go back to fighting for people. It's like you said something like it's your calling. Like this is not an act. Like this is like we're talking about actually about superhero. I talk about Prodigy. You go to Mobb Deep, and then you talk about how fighting for people for healthcare. It's impressive to watch. You're all in. Clearly, you're all in.
All in.
So I appreciate your time, man. Thank you for all that you're doing, and let's do this again soon.
Man, definitely happy to.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, and we'll see you next time in Real Talk.
This is 365 Media.